Here comes the money. You're now listening to the Gambling with Gold podcast with Jason Gold. Presented by Champions Round.
What is going on? Welcome to the Gambling with Gold. My name is Jason Gold. I'm here with Dan Titus. We're here to talk about the NFC North. Another terrible division, but a lot of exciting bets to make on this division. Can't wait to get into it. Dan, how you doing on this Tuesday, August 16th?
Is it really terrible? Are we defining this division as terrible? I think this is one of our sleeper divisions, but I'm doing good, man. Tuesday, more football to be played. We're getting that much closer to the season, man. So couldn't be more hype to talk more player props and division odds this beautiful Tuesday afternoon.
All right, so obviously off the top, I forgot what the hell show I'm on because I keep posting Daily Dozen every morning.
I didn't want to say that. I was like, Dave, you're doing so many. It's like, oh, dude, shit, is this which Gambling with Gold? Daily Dozen?
So I keep thinking about Daily Dozen, and I'm looking at the bottom of our screen right now. So $10 first deposit bonus if you use the code Daily Dozen right now. You have until 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern to lock in your MLB picks. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, we'll have NFL preseason slates. We're fully into the swing of gambling here at Champions Round. Also, a lot of fun stuff coming down the road. We have an NFL fantasy draft guide by Dan Turner that is going to come out later this week or the beginning of next week. We have a new fantasy game mode that we're going to debut on September 1st. A lot of cool things happening at Champions Round. A lot of fun ways to play fantasy, play a little gambling game, all sorts of good stuff. So be sure to download that app and use the promo code Daily Dozen to get that first deposit bonus. All right, let's jump into the NFC North here. Odds to win the division currently at DraftKings. Green Bay minus 190. Minnesota plus 265. Detroit plus 1,000. Chicago plus 1,400. Win totals for each team. Packers 11. Minnesota at 9. Detroit at 6.5. And Chicago also at 6.5, but minus 190 towards the under there, something we will talk about in a little bit. Playoff odds for each team. Green Bay minus 500 to make the playoffs, plus 350 to miss the playoffs. Minnesota minus 115 and minus 105. Detroit plus 400 to get in, minus 550 not to make it. And the Chicago Bears plus 450 to make it, minus 650 to not make it. Do any of those odds jump out to you? I know that we talked about a lot on the Vikings. I know that you and I are both very high on that team in Minnesota this year.
Yeah, I think that's the team that I'm going to get behind here. I like their 8.5 wins. I'm going to take the over on that. You know, we talked about Warren Sharp's strength of schedule. Right now, they are squarely number 16 on that list. So, like, they're middle of the pack here. But I think this team's going to rise in this division here, and I think we're going to see the Packers take a bit of a step back. I know it's hard to bet against Aaron Rodgers and what he's done and dominated in this division, but I don't know, man. Something about his energy and that Con Air Nick Cage vibes or something. I think it's going to take a little bit of time for him to get into this new look wide receiver offense without one of the best red zone targets we've probably seen in this decade easily in Davante Adams. So there's a lot of young bucks in the wide receiver room, and I think he's going to have to get adjusted to that. I think we'll see Aaron Jones probably getting a lot more reps as a receiver as well. But I don't think it's just going to be easy cakewalk here for the Packers like it's been in years past. I think we're going to see the Minnesota Vikings surprise here. So I like their over 8.5, but I also like them, you know, with the Packers so juiced up to like upwards of minus 180, minus 190 to win this division. I think it's better value betting on the Vikings to take it over at plus 265. So that's another bet that I really like.
Okay, so I guess we'll just jump off the top with one of my bets here. So I bet over 8.5, minus 140 for the Vikings. I love that pick. I still love that pick. I think that them to make the playoffs, minus 115 is a really nice bet too. In terms of them winning the division here, so the plus 265 is enticing. That's something that we had talked about on shows previously, but I do think that there's a better angle here than the plus 265. Now, it might be on the margins, but all of these margins matter when it comes to making these picks. Even if it's getting a plus 320 instead of plus 265, all of this matters. We're all about value here at Gamble with Gold. So I bring you this. Why not bet the exact two top order Vikings?
Oh, look at you adopting the top two. I like it.
Vikings first, Green Bay second, I think that if the Vikings are going to win this division, it's very clear that the Green Bay Packers are going to be second. As much as I think that you and I are both a little high on the Lions this year, I
Right.
don't think that there's any way in which they finish second in the division over the Packers.
No,
We might be a little down on the Packers, but probably not going to happen.
not
So,
not not going to take that leap.
so the Vikings to finish first, the Green Bay Packers to finish second. You move that plus 265 to plus 315 at DraftKings. Get a little bit extra value, extra $50 in your pocket for putting $100 on the line. I think that personally, if you're going to bet the Vikings to win the division, don't bother betting that. Just bet that plus 315 exact order, because that's what's going to happen if the Vikings win this division.
I totally agree, and you've convinced me, man. I definitely believe that will be the case. Ooh, yeah. Now you got me looking at this exact order again. I'm like, ooh, Vikings,
Here we go.
Packers,
Lions, Bears.
Yeah, that's looking like 10-1.
Interesting.
I don't know. I might have to look at that again, man. But I like where you're going with that. The exact top two. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Well, let's talk about the Lions and the Bears in a little bit. I want to start off let's run through the strength of schedules here. You mentioned it off the top. So Green Bay has the 15th easiest schedule, Minnesota 16th. The Detroit Lions have the 5th easiest schedule, and the Chicago Bears have the 4th easiest schedule. So from the Bears perspective, the 6.5, I'm going to hold on it. I have a point on here, but let's talk about the Green Bay Packers off the top.
Okay.
So the Green Bay Packers obviously lost Davante Adams. Don't know what we're going to have at wide receiver. What do you think that offense is going to look like this season? What do you think their potential is? And do you think that they're going to lean more on the running game and they really built up this defense? And if Jair Alexander's healthy and a lot of their young guys that they drafted in the first round this year step up, this could be a really elite defense. So do you think it's more of a running defense and then like Aaron Rodgers over the top type of team? And do you think that they can have success this season with that sort of methodology?
I do, because I think that that's what Matt LaFleur has been displaying over the years here. They have never prioritized wide receiver, but I guess you don't really have to when you have a guy like Davante Adams. But I think it was intentional with them getting call it a handcuff or a 1B in AJ Dillon and getting him so involved, ramping up his workload over the course of the last couple of years here. And one of my best bets this offseason has been AJ Dillon over 5.5 rushing touchdowns. I think he's going to smash it over. But I do think that they can establish the run, and that's really what they're going to do to they have a good offensive line, so there's no reason to force the issue and become a pass-happy offense if that's not your identity. And, it's going to take Aaron Rodgers, like he's already been hyping up Romeo Dubs.
I don't know. He's going to win some
Either
dubs.
Way, he's getting dubs in the red zone, right? So Christian Watson just got off of the PUP list, so we'll see how he's going to kind of fit in. But he's obviously playing catch up. But you do have a couple of sure hands there in Randall Cobb and Sammy Watkins. I'm not banking on Sammy Watkins to last the whole season here, but he's a veteran, and I think Aaron Rodgers is a guy of trust. He's got Allen Lazard there as like his main guy. That's the carryover from the previous season. So I don't know. I think that this offense will certainly still be dangerous, but I think it's going to take a step back, and I think we're going to see them more reliant on the run, being that you have two really good backs to really run the ball, really. So I think that's really going to be their path to success here, is run the ball, and then once that opens up, then you hit your playmakers, and that's what Aaron Rodgers has been doing consistently over the last several of years. He's pretty much guaranteed to throw for 4,000 yards and anywhere from 28 to 40 touchdowns. So if that's your floor, I think that's a great starting point for a good season.
Do you have any concern with the offensive line issues right now that Bakhtiari isn't back at left tackle, and then Jenkins on the other side is still dealing with an injury? They might come into the season without their two top tackles. And if you're planning on running the ball and that's going to be your identity, and then Rodgers is going to pass off of that, you might be in a world of hurt. And then, you don't have your blind side. Look, it worked last year. I guess it kind of worked the last 2 years because Bakhtiari really hasn't played in 2 years consistently. And Rodgers still managed to do it. And if you're going to trust any quarterback, it is Rodgers. But at the end of the day, you still got to protect the quarterback, and you got to create running lanes. So for me, that's a huge concern heading into the season.
Yeah, it's definitely a concern. I think it's interesting looking at their schedule here, because they start off with the divisional matchup versus the Vikings. And And then they head to the Bears, and then the Bears come home. So, I think that they actually, and then they go Tampa Bay, New England. They got some really winnable games here in the middle of their schedule here before they hit their bye week. So I think that they're actually be a team that's going to hit their stride midway. And then I think we'll see this offensive line get healthier as time wears on here. But I'm not overly concerned because Aaron Rodgers, just his stature in the game here, like he doesn't make a lot of mistakes, even if their line isn't ideal or as good as it has been in the past. I think they'll still be successful. It's the end of the schedule to me that I'm like, ooh, gets a little dicey.
So as I was reading through Warren Sharp's book, which I encourage all of you to go read if you're a true degenerate gambler or NFL fan in general, one of the interesting notes at the end was Green Bay has the worst schedule in the NFL when it comes to net rest edge. So how much rest they have coming into a game versus the other team. The worst in the NFL in terms of schedule. So they may have the 15th easiest schedule in terms of projected win-loss record in Vegas. However, in terms of net rest edge, that is going to be a huge difference. And I think it really could hurt them, especially coming down later in the season.
Your offensive line. You're right.
Exactly. One of the other things that I was interested in the Packers was, so last year, or I guess the last couple of years, the Green Bay Packers are 7-0 without Davante Adams in the lineup. And I'm wondering if that is more of a that Matt LaFleur was designing an offense knowing that Adams wasn't there and was able to pick it up in those 7 games. Was it opponent based, or is that something more indicative of how the Green Bay Packers can be successful without Davante Adams? Personally, I think it's overblown, but I can see the angle being like, look, they can win without Adams. They've proved it. Now they're going to double down on what worked in those games, and it could be successful this season.
And what were those teams that Davante Adams was absent against?
That's part I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, obviously they were willing to let him walk, right? Like, so I think that they do have some kind of a system designed that they could be effective without him. What that scheme looks like, I think it's more usage to the skill positions like Aaron Jones. Like, he's going to be very busy receiving, rushing, doing it all. And I was looking at one of his player props. I think his rushing receiving sitting at 1,300 and a half. He's pretty close to it last year, but he blew through it the 2 previous years before that. I think he's going to be heavily involved, and he's going to be the guy that's really going to be I would say the go-to weapon for Aaron Rodgers without Davante Adams there. Red zone, between the seams, and Allen Lazard's got to make a huge step up, but it's interesting, man. I just got to wonder about the wide receiving group and if they're going to be able to hold it down for him, because if they don't, and he has no time to throw, or there's miscommunication on routes, timing, that could be the end of their demise. And that's what we need as, Vikings truthers here to really see them, oversee them in this division.
The other thing with the Packers that's interesting to note is since they got Matt LaFleur, they have the most wins above expected in the NFL, aka their Pythag record is way better than anyone else in the NFL. Do we think that regresses this season, or do we think that's more symptomatic of the fact that in these close games, 1-score games at the end, they have Aaron Rodgers and you don't, and that is just going to naturally lead you to get more wins than expected because you have a quarterback of that caliber?
I'd say that's a concern. That's definitely a risk. Luck definitely plays a factor, but I mean, he's a veteran, so I think there's certain plays that he makes that other people can't, but he's also another year older, doesn't have the reliability of what he had before. The defense, I think, held him back a lot last year. Not having Jair Alexander for a portion of the season certainly was a weakness for them. So the fact their defense is coming back healthier than last year, I think that's a good thing. So if the offense does take a slight step back, at least the defense can at least support them in those close situations. But the Packers, I feel like the Packers are going to fall off, man. Like, if I can't get behind them to get their win total was what, 10.5 or 11.5?
11 on the dot.
11 on the dot. Yeah. See, no, man, they're going to take a step back. I'm going to fade them this year. And I don't know how far that drop off is going to come. Maybe it's 10 wins and that's still very solid, but I don't know. I just think that this team isn't going to be as good as they were in years past. And I think we saw it kind of crumble in the playoffs last year. Like, that offense was just sputtering, man, just didn't do anything. And I don't know if that was, the contract situation, whatever was looming with the front office, but like all of that energy is still coming in to this season. So like, I don't think we can just absolve everything that happened in the past and say like, oh, Aaron Rodgers is the GOAT, so they're going to be great again. No,
it was I think
other teams got better in this division, and they've been hunting them down. And now it's going to be the time they're actually going to have to show out a little bit.
To be fair to the Packers, at least a little bit, that game was like the coldest, windiest game in the history of NFL playoffs. So a little dicey for them to get the passing game going at all. The only thing that worked for them was A.J. Dillon in the first quarter. I guess my last question on Green Bay is, do you think that the way that they're going to play with more of a running game, more emphasis on defense, is going to lead them potentially to have more success in the playoffs if they get there? And it's minus 500 for them to get the playoffs. I think that you and I probably both agree that they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, the worst case wild card situation.
So do you think that the way that they're going to play this season makes it more likely that they can have success in the playoffs, or less likely because you don't have the special X factor of Davante?
There's question marks in the NFC in general. So Tom Brady, you've been on record. You think he's going to have a down year?
The guy's not even playing. He's I don't know what he's doing.
We don't know what he's doing.
The guy does not even play football.
We don't know what he's doing. He's got his assigned absence. He's good. Approved absence. Matthew Stafford's got elbow issues. I don't know how significant it is, but it's an elbow issue for the defending champ. The Eagles, I think, are going to be pretty good, but I don't know that, there's definitely going to be questions. What does Jalen Hurts look like in the playoffs after what we saw last year?
Exactly.
The Cowboys have their question marks.
Vikings in the Super Bowl? Is that what we're saying? Vikings in the Super Bowl?
I'm just saying that this is wide. I think it's more wide open than it's been in the past. So if Aaron Rodgers happens to catch steam again late in the season, I think it's in the realm of possible that they could surprise, especially if their defense remains healthy. But I'm not really willing to bet it right now. Like I want to see it. I want to see it before I'm jumping to those conclusions. But I do think if it's going to happen, this would be a good time for it, because I think there's questions at the top of the division of who's really going to be the best team in the NFC when it comes to playoff time.
All right, final point on the Packers, then we're going to move on to the Vikings.
Yep.
If the Packers make it to the Super Bowl this season in Arizona, I am betting the shit out of the Packers to win the Super Bowl. And I can tell you why. Aaron Rodgers loves that stadium. Every time he goes and plays the Arizona Cardinals in that stadium, he puts up a 45 burger. Go back and look at it. Even last year, when I think they had like 18 guys on COVID, he was the only guy out there. They still won. He doesn't lose in that stadium. And if he does, it's on like that miracle Larry Fitzgerald play, but he made the play to get to overtime. So I can just tell you, I'll just predict 6 months from now, if they're in the Super Bowl in Arizona, I'm betting the Packers. That's all I got.
I'm not mad at it.
Let's go on to the Minnesota Vikings this year, a team that we are incredibly high on for a multitude of reasons. I'm just going to run through every bet that I have on the Vikings and tell me where I'm wrong, because I'm not wrong, but that's okay. Kirk Cousins to lead the league in passing. I bet this at plus 5,000. It's now plus 2,500. Even at DraftKings, it's down to plus 1,800. So value. Justin Jefferson, Offensive Player of the Year, plus 2,000. We talked about that. Kevin O'Connell, Coach of the Year, plus 2,000. We'll circle back on that. Minnesota to win the division. I bet it plus 255 or something like that. Now I have this other plus 315 in there. Make the playoffs minus 115. Over 8.5 wins minus 140. Kirk Cousins, another one that I like. Over 12.5 interceptions this season, because they're going to be chucking the rock.
He's going to be throwing the ball.
So over 12.5 interceptions this year. And I actually think, despite the fact that I think he's going to play really well this season, I do think that there's value if you can find it on Kirk Cousins to lead the NFL in interceptions this season. I saw it at plus 1,700 before. Kind of like that too. It's almost like a little Jameis Winston-ish. Lead the league in passing and interceptions. Classic Jameis move. I think that's all I have on the Vikings right now, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot more before the season's over.
Yeah, that was you covered a majority of mine. I'm on Kirk Cousins to lead the league in passing. I also like Derek Carr, but that's a story for another day. I've been on Justin Jefferson to lead the league in receiving. I see that's now at plus 800. I got that at plus 900. So not much value movement there, but he does have the shortest odds to do that. No need to go into why we think that, because Kevin O'Connell, obviously the system is definitely going to bode well for pass catchers. The other one I was looking at was also Dalvin Cook rushing TDs. Really just didn't have much touchdown luck last year. I think that that's going to positively regress here. So, I mean, he's sitting at over 9.5 at plus money. I think he's going to have double digits for how much this offense is going to be moving the ball, pushing the ball down the field. I think he's going to see double digits rushing for sure. Didn't get in the Kevin O'Connell coach of the year, but I could definitely see it if they can overtake this division. He's certainly going to be in the conversation, and if they can get to 10, 11 wins, especially with the 8.5 expected, I think that there's certainly value there too. So, yeah, I love this Vikings team, fantasy wise, betting wise. Like I think this is gonna be a really good show to watch.
Okay, so the Vikings, the NFC gets an extra home game this season, which I think is worth noting for the Vikings win total over. They have a great net rest advantage, one of the best in the NFL this season. They get 9 home games, excluding the 2020 season. Since they opened US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, they're 36-18-4 against the spread at home. They have an incredible home fan base and advantage at home. And I think that because they get the 9 home games this season, you're going to see them go like 6-3, 7-2 at home this year, which should put us well in range of getting this. Whether you want to bet it at 8.5, 9. I've seen some 9.5s out there. You're just not getting good value. I still think they're going to go over it, but I probably wouldn't bet it anything above 9 at this point. Fair. Minus 115 for the playoffs. I think that's going to be really good. Why don't we talk about what has happened in the offseason? Kevin O'Connell bringing over the Rams system, which we all think is going to be great for the sort of players that they have. Adam Thielen should have a good season. All the reports out of camp is that he looks like his old self. Justin Jefferson's going to go right into this Cooper Kupp mode. That couldn't be any more perfect for him. They're going to throw the ball so much, especially on first down. O'Connell in that Rams system is relatively unpredictable, which is going to be great for their offense. The reports on left tackle Christian Darrisaw is that he's like the next coming of Trent Williams at this point. I don't believe that, but he's looks really, really good.
Hype.
Yeah, it's a lot of hype. But everything on their offensive side, and look, they probably have issues at tight end and who their third wide receiver is going to be, although we saw KJ Osborne step up last season a little bit, and he should have a relatively decent season. I'm worried about the tight end a little bit, but in terms of they have a good backup running back, Alexander Madison. We've seen every time that he comes in for Dalvin Cook, he basically does just as good of a job. No concerns on that end. I think this offense should end up being a top 10 offense in the NFL this season. I would not be surprised if it ends up being a top 5 offense in this season. Is there anything about the Vikings offense that overly concerns you? Obviously, there's some concerns about what's the ceiling for Kirk Cousins. But that's kind of it. It's like if O'Connell can get the best out of Kirk Cousins, let's say he gets 70% of what Matthew Stafford produced for the Rams last season, this team's going to be awesome.
I'm buying into this. I'm buying into this offense. So like, to me, I'm trying to look at from a devil's advocate perspective of like what could fail. I think you're right. It probably would be this falling on the shoulders of Kirk Cousins. I mean, this dude's been playing on a 1-year deal for like the last 2-3 seasons. Like, I feel like he's extra motivated to get. He's eventually going to want a long-term deal, I would imagine, for how much money Kyler Murray's getting and Deshaun Watson and et cetera. So this is another prove it opportunity. But I think Zimmer was holding him back.
Oh yeah.
And if you move from a defensive scheme or a defensive-minded head coach to an offensive-minded head coach, to me, I think that just raises your ceiling. So for as good as Kirk Cousins was last year, over 30 touchdowns, single-digit interceptions, I think this is going to be even more promising for them. And, you look at Dalvin Cook, great weapon. You still have some insurance behind him and Alexander Madison. You're getting a healthy Adam Thielen. Sure, he's another year older, but this dude is a red zone beast. That's all he does is catch touchdowns. Irv Smith, unfortunately, but like he wasn't really a blocking tight end anyway. He was more of a receiving guy. So I think that this offense is just, it's really going to be on Kirk Cousins for how far they go. So if he's healthy, committed, I think not having the COVID stuff to have to deal with as much won't put as much pressure on him to succeed. I think this offense is going to take a step forward this season. So I'm just excited about it. So I can't really see too many knocks. Especially if you're getting your right tackle that's getting or your left tackle compared to Trent Williams, even if that's gas, like that's still a pretty damn positive report, man. And if you can protect them, that's what's going to take for them to be successful. So if you got that covered, And I actually like what they did we didn't talk about their defense, but I think signing Jordan Hicks was actually an underrated signing. That dude's gotten triple-digit tackles in the last 2 or 3 seasons, I think. Had double-digit sacks. So I think that's another thing that they could have improved upon last year, and that will certainly help their rise in this division is like, can your defense come to play against these better teams like the Packers? And I think, that's certainly a great start for them. So I like what they're doing there. I'm on this Vikings team, man.
The defense is the biggest key to me. How good can they be? If they're if they're a bottom half of the league defense, it might be a little bit of an issue. If they're middle of the pack, I think that this team gets 10 or 11 wins relatively easily. The big concern to me is on the back end. Like you have Patrick Peterson on one side. Okay, he's old, but he can still do okay. There have been good reports out of Cameron Dantzler thus far in camp, but that's the big concern is can anyone hit them over the top? And in this division, the Bears aren't doing shit. The Lions, okay, maybe they have some guys, but it's not really an over-the-top team. Goff hates passing the ball deep, so not really scared there. And the Packers, they lost Davante Adams and MVS, the guy who takes the top off. So I'm not as concerned. I think that those 6 games in the division, they should probably go. Oh, that was another bet that I had. Vikings over 3.5 wins in the division this season.
Love that.
That's a classic Dan bet right there.
4-2, man. I see it. Like if 4-2 is definitely within reach, man. I love that bet.
All right, why don't we move on to the Detroit Lions? The Dan Campbells, the fighting Dan Campbells, loves to see them on Hard Knocks. My biggest concern with them right now is they're getting too much juice in the market because they're on Hard Knocks, and everybody loves Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn and Deuce Staley. That was my favorite thing I think I've ever seen on Hard Knocks, or one of them was the two of them going back and forth. I absolutely loved it. Those two are electric. They need their own television show in Detroit. Definitely
do. I love that. I mean, from a fantasy perspective, that's really the only angle that I'm really been buying into the Detroit Lions. I still feel like they're like a year away. I love what they've done in their offensive line to protect Jared Goff, but also I think they have a really solid offense here. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who really emerged from weeks 13 to the end of the season last year. Granted, that could have been probably because TJ Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift were battling injuries, but I still think that he's going to be a good bet. I think his reception total is at 78.5. I like the over on that. I think he's going to get at least 80. But you also look at they brought in DJ Shark. I think that this offense is just going to be better. It's just a matter of they eked out a couple of nice wins last year. Can this defense step up? And, from what I've seen from Hard Knocks and just Dan Campbell being Dan Campbell, he motivates these guys. And I think you have people in the locker room that really want to win, that come from a winning environment like Jamal Williams. I think there's something to be inspired about this Detroit team. I think that they'll exceed their win total here. What is that, 6.5?
6.5, yep.
Yeah. I feel all right about that. I think I'm going to take the over. My lean is to take the over on 6.5 wins, man. I think this team's going to be better than they were last year.
My concern about this team is primarily defensively. Let's talk about the offense for a second. Jared Goff obviously is going to be the thing that holds it back if anything is going to happen there. But we have Dan Campbell, who took over play calling at the end of the season last year from Anthony Lynn. Anthony Lynn was really, really conservative, was running the ball a lot on first down with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. Not going to be the case this season. When Dan Campbell took over, they went heavy, aggressive early on in the game, passing on first down a ton, which I think is really good. And I think it's probably being undervalued in the market right now, especially in the early season lines, how aggressive they could be offensively on first down passing and passing the ball down the field, which is something that Campbell's going to want, and now that Deuce Staley is going to want here. So I would bet, one of the things that I wrote down was I want to bet on the Lions as big dogs early in the year, and I want to bet overs because I still don't trust this defense, but I think this offense is going to be way more productive than probably people think. So like week 1 against Philly at home, they're plus 4.5. Look, Philly's going to be a really good team this year, but I kind of like that plus 4.5, and I really like the over in that game for sure. And I think there's going to be value for a couple weeks until the market adjusts on the Lions there. This is a top 5, top 7 offensive line in the NFL this season with Penei Sewell locking down the left side and some of the other parts that they have there. Good running game, 2 solid running backs. We both expect DeAndre Swift to probably have a pretty good season and Jamal Williams to have a good season as well. We like all their wide receivers. I like the addition of DJ Shark to take the top off a little bit. Amon-Ra was great last year. They're going to get Jameson Williams back at some point. Hawkinson's healthy. As long as Goff is able to keep it together and they kind of mix in their aggressiveness versus running the ball and get that kind of mix right, I would anticipate that this is a pretty decent offense. Now, on the defensive side, yes, they have Aiden Hutchinson. Yes, they brought in some okay pieces. This defense could get torched this season. The cornerbacks are an issue. All of their secondary is an issue. I don't really love any of their linebackers. They might get to the quarterback a little bit more with Hutchinson, but this seems to me like a team that is going to be in a lot of 30 to 27 games during the course of the season.
Yeah, that's kind of what they were last year. Like this Detroit team, no matter how bad they got down, man, they just wind up making these third, fourth quarter comebacks to make it interesting. I did think that it was cool, or at least a little bit more interesting, that they have the second best edge in terms of rest advantage this season, according to Warren Sharp, only behind the Bills. So I know injuries definitely came up as a problem last year. So, maybe with that little advantage there, they could eke out a couple more wins here, because they did lose quite a few games last year by a pretty small margin. So, if you have that coaching motivational tutelage here, you ramp up on offense, maybe you can steal a couple games to make up for that defense that ultimately could fail you.
My concern with betting the 6.5 over, and there's a lot of good things. We like the offense. The schedule is really easy. The net rest advantage is easy. We like their new offensive coordinator. We think it'll be aggressive. So a lot of good points here. If they double their win total from last year, they're still under 6.5 wins. So if this defense is really that bad, it's my kind of concern. And my other concern is everybody's betting the over right now. And I tend to lean to be contrarian in the market. And I think that Hard Knocks bump, the Hard Knocks hype, I can't really do it. It would not be one of my favorite bets. If I had to lean, like I wrote
Hard
down
Knocks hype.
my prediction for this team, I have it at 6.8 wins. So lean towards 7. I wouldn't bet the under, but I'm just not sure I can pull the trigger on the over. Their opening season, I think their first 2 games were the Eagles and maybe it's the Packers or something like that. I think they're going to start 0-2. This might be something that you want to bet
Eagles
live.
And Commanders, actually. So I think they
might go
1-1.
So 1-1 there. Okay. Maybe I was thinking of the Bears.
But then it gets a little. No. Then they travel to Minnesota. Then they got Seattle. It's kind of like up until the
back
week
and forth. Okay.
Yeah.
So
up until the week 7, that's when it gets kind of interesting.
So disregard there. If you want to bet that total, I would probably bet it now. Then, is there what's like the biggest concern that you have for the Lions this season?
Biggest concern for the Lions. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I think it's really on the back of Jared Goff. He completes a lot of passes, but can he get it downfield and not turn over the ball? Fumbles a lot when they get pressure. So hopefully the offensive line that you just invested in can protect that and stop that from happening. But I think it's really going to be cutting down the turnovers and Jared Goff remaining healthy throughout the season. Because without this offense, this team is just going to struggle. So we've already talked about the deficiencies on defense. I don't want to put it on DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson, because I think that those guys getting hurt last year certainly impacted their performance on the field. But I think Jared Goff's going to be even more important for him to stay upright.
All right, let's move over to the Chicago Bears, who are plus 1,400 to win the division. Their win total 6.5, minus 190 under. So everyone and their mother in the market wants to bet this under on the Chicago Bears. I do too. It makes a ton of sense. My giant concern here is, why is this number 6.5? Everybody's betting on them to have the worst record in the NFL. They did nothing offensively to help Justin Fields. It's a new defensive head coach. Their offensive coordinator, I don't even know where the hell they plucked him from, what they're going to do here. Their best wide receiver is Darnell Mooney, and then it's 25-year-old Velus Jones. Cole Kmet. David Montgomery's okay. Their offensive line stinks. They already want to trade away Tevin Jenkins. I don't know what this team is, and they didn't get better defensively. They lost guys like Khalil Mack. This team should, in theory, be like 3-14. I love Justin Fields. I have a bet on him to go over 3.5 rushing touchdowns this season. I think his total for rushing yards this season is like 425.5 or something like that. Love the over on that. But I don't understand this number at all, which scares the crap out of me. How are they going to get to 7 wins this season? They have the 4th easiest schedule in the NFL. That may help them. Other than that, Please explain to me why this number is like this.
I'm going through the schedule looking at it. I'm like, where are 7 wins coming from, man? Like I'm not convinced they can beat Detroit twice. I mean, I don't even know if they could be. I mean, maybe they could beat the Texans, but like that's not a sure bet. The Giants, that's not a sure bet. I mean, their strength of schedule is definitely boosted because they're playing the NFC East, but I think that the Giants are going to be better. I don't know what I'm thinking about the Commanders. I think they could actually end up being one of the worst teams too. But yeah, 6.5 for the Bears. As much as I want to be optimistic that, in the games where, they let the reins off of Justin Fields, he was, a pretty competent quarterback, but dude, he's got no weapons. And like David Montgomery, I think he's going to probably start losing some snaps to Khalil Herbert or Ebner, who's been kind of popping off in preseason. He does have the mobility to get him up the field, but you lost Khalil Mack. Like that's your edge rusher. The team didn't get, you said it best. The team didn't get better. They didn't make any reasonable additions. Their draft picks were like mediocre. And you still got a guy like Justin Fields who like didn't totally have, I don't know. It didn't seem like he convinced the coaching staff that he was ready for it last year. They kind of just thrusted him in there. He figured it out, but he doesn't have enough around him to really go anywhere here. Like Darnell Mooney, cool, awesome. Byron Pringle,
yeah.
Cole Kmet, like there's not enough weapons here, man. So unless they're going to run the ball, control the clock, and not make mistakes, which is definitely going to happen for a young QB like Justin Fields, like I just don't see where they're going to reel off 7 wins here.
It doesn't make any sense to me, which is why I'm scared to bet it, and I probably won't bet it.
Stay away, man. I don't want to touch the Bears for anything. Not fantasy, not betting. Like I'm good. I'll watch if they succeed. Hey, cool. You guys are right, but it scares me, man. That's a trap.
They have no draft capital because of the Justin Fields trade.
Right.
And so now they're trying to recoup some of it with any spare part they can. So they want to trade Tevin Jenkins. Maybe they'll get a 4th or a 5th round pick from there. Roquan Smith is holding out because they don't believe in him. Basically, they don't want to pay him.
Right.
They say they want to keep him because obviously this is their best defensive player. But if they end up trading him for like a 2nd round pick or something, maybe you get a 1st from it. Yeah, you're just progressively getting worse. Ryan Poles walked into a really difficult situation. Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy really put them in a bind here.
Nagy's
maybe they get a huge bump from not having Nagy and his terrible play calling. Maybe.
Yeah. I think they get a little bit better, yeah.
And I think that Eberflus was a very competent defensive coordinator for the Colts. I think he seems like, to me, a grown-up, which may help. I don't know what his in-game coaching style is going to be for them, but maybe you get a bump from that. I'm just trying to think of all the ways it could be positive. Obviously, to get to 7 wins is going to have to be a huge jump from Justin Fields, which I could see happening, but they didn't do anything to help him. That offensive line is still not very good. You have no real weapons. Your best weapon is Justin Fields running the ball on the ground. When Justin Fields ran last year, they averaged like 4.7 yards per carry, and the rest of it was like 3.65.
Mm-hmm.
So Fields is going to run the crap out of the ball this season. I don't know. That's kind of the only angle that I can think about the Bears. I really, really want to hammer this under at -190. That number is so stupid to me that like I think that Vegas knows something that I don't quite pick up on.
Is there any other angle that you can see? Like, I mean, if we go into like divisional wins, or if we go, into like...
I have Chicago under 2.5 NFC North wins. That makes sense to me.
I could. Yeah, that's reasonable. Under 2.5. Yeah.
They're losing both to the Packers for sure. They're probably split with the Lions. That's 1, and if they split with the Vikings, that's 1. They're 2-4 at best.
And that's still giving them some. If we're that high on the Minnesota Vikings, they shouldn't be losing that game. But
exactly, but that's like a classic Vikings loss. Like they'll drop 1 to the Bears for absolutely no reason in some sort of weather game at Soldier Field. But that's about it. So the best I can get to is 2-4.
Do you think that the Bears have one of the worst defenses in the NFL?
No, I don't think it's one of the worst defenses in the NFL. I still think they have pieces. And like I said, I think that Eberflus is a really competent defensive coordinator, and he'll put them in good positions to succeed.
Even
And
without
also,
Roquan, potentially?
even without Roquan, remember, Soldier Field, we've talked about, or we've seen
It's
how
tough
bad
to play.
that
Yeah.
tough place to play, cold, windy, can be miserable when you get into December, and we've seen how bad that field is. It's not the easiest place to walk into and play when the Bears stink. So now, if you're thinking that, just to play devil's advocate, let's say that Justin Fields is a top 15 quarterback in the NFL this season. I don't know if I foresee that, but let's say that. So now you have a top 15 quarterback with a decent running game in the cold on that shitty field, and you have to walk into there in December, and the defense is competent-ish. I can see a path to victory there where they're reeling off wins at the end of the season at Soldier Field. Is the defense going to be great on, a random turf against the Rams? No, they're going to get their ass kicked. But in certain situations, yeah, I think that they're competent enough. I wouldn't say that they're like a bottom 5 defense in the NFL.
How do you feel about under 5.5 wins?
I saw that. I think it was under 5.5 plus 120.
Yeah.
I think that might be a better bet than the minus 190. Like, if we think the Bears are going to stink, like,
right,
just go
you might as well just
all in on them stinking. Yeah, or like worst record in the NFL. I don't know what that is, but like that's how I would play it. If you're going to go and bet on the Bears, I would not do the under 6.5 minus 190. I would go to the full extremes.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Is there anybody on the Bears that's like an interesting fantasy piece for you, or someone that's not being talked about?
It would probably be Khalil Herbert. I think that he's a better running back than yeah, I think I might go as far to say he's a better running back than David Montgomery. I think Montgomery's been there. He's been there long enough that he's just, been the mainstay of the offense. But if you look at the production of Khalil Herbert when Montgomery wasn't there or when he ceded touches, like Khalil Herbert was just a more effective running back. So he's more explosive. He has better hands. I think there's going to be a good chance that he could be actually a pretty valuable fantasy pickup this season. So I would use him as one of those. If you're either punting RB or, you're looking for those high valuable upside guys, Khalil Herbert's definitely fits that mold.
All right. Why don't we close the podcast with this, what we've been doing for every division. Division MVP and LVP. Why don't you go first with MVP?
MVP. Oh, MVP. Justin Jefferson. I think he's going to it's got to be Justin. Like, I think the world knows that he's going to have a very good season, and I'm just buying into the hype, man. Like, I don't think Cooper Kupp is going to be as explosive as he was last year. He's got Allen Robinson to compete with in targets. Davante Adams is in a new situation. Jamar Chase, I think his T. Higgins could probably be a little bit better this year, so that might bring down his numbers a little bit. So I just think that this is ripe for opportunity with Justin Jefferson. Doesn't have to compete for a lot of targets. And Adam Thielen's another year older. Irv Smith's already out. KJ Osborne, not really a threat. This dude's going to be peppered with targets. So he's going to be a beast.
I think that there's a good chance that Justin Jefferson has more targets than like Michael Thomas did when he had like 150 receptions.
Yeah.
It could be that sort of season for Justin Jefferson this year. I had Jefferson or Rodgers as the MVP. Rodgers for obvious reasons. He's still fucking Aaron Rodgers.
He still owns this division.
Yeah. He still won 2 MVPs back to back. Davante Adams gone. Yeah, sure. But maybe that's even more of a reason for Rodgers to be MVP. Let's see what he can do without Adams in the lineup. And Jefferson, exactly what you said, for obvious reasons. LVP, I didn't know where to go with this one. Do you got anything?
LVP. Man, I want to pick someone on the Bears, but I don't have it. Shit. I guess I gotta go David Montgomery.
I like that. That's a good call. If you're gonna buy all in on Khalil Herbert, that Montgomery's gonna take a step back. I like that. The first thing that came to my mind was the Packers GM Gutekunst, because they traded away Davante Adams. But he's not a player.
He could be a genius. We'll see.
And then my second one was Ryan Poles for not doing anything to help out Justin Fields. But first year walking in, like, he's just trying to get the house in order at this point, so it's kind of hard to blame him for doing whatever he had to do. Lions defense, I guess I'll pick up one player because it all comes down to the secondary for me at least. So Jeff Okudah, are you going to exist this year, Jeff Okudah? Number 3 former pick. He missed last year with a bum knee. First year, he was the worst quarterback in football. So time to put up or shut up as a former number 3 pick here. And I don't know if he gets it done. And if he doesn't, this Lions over 6.5 probably dead. So Okuda, you're a watch as my LVP this season. Kind of weird to pick a quarterback there. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Forgot to mention, wasn't there reports that David Montgomery was playing on special teams?
And do you see today Antonio Gibson also? I think this is like the new thing with like you're like pseudo demoted. It's like he ran one punt return back.
Dude, that just can't be good. I'm willing to sacrifice you on probably one of the most dangerous plays is fielding a punt.
Yeah,
that's your standing in this organization right now. I mean, the free for all between both of those guys has been really interesting to watch because are you at the point now where it's like it's value, he fell too far, like I gotta take him, or it's like I gotta stay away, like read the tea leaves, like this ain't it, or you get the next guy. I don't know.
I feel like for Montgomery, I would probably if he keeps dropping, I'd probably be like, okay, screw it, I'll take him. But I would probably try to get Herbert later and just like run it back.
Right.
But I hate their offensive line. So I don't know. That one's tough. The one that we can talk about on a different podcast, but like the one that I'm fully buying in on, like the drop is Antonio Gibson. Like I think it's over. Okay. But I'm not quite.
We should talk about the NFC East next.
Maybe we will. Maybe we'll do the NFC. You know what? Screw it. We'll announce that now. We're doing the NFC next. NFC East next. Can't wait. All right, that does it for Gambling with Gold, episode 95, the NFC North gambling preview. We will be back next week to now preview the NFC East. Can't wait to talk about that. Go download the Champions Round app. Get this $10 first deposit bonus by using the code DailyDozen. We have all sorts of great stuff coming down the road, heading into the NFL season. Can't wait to do that. And I guess a little final announcement here. Dana and I will be competing in the Circa contest this year. So our Tuesday and Friday shows will be dedicated to the Circa lines and what we're going to be betting on there in the big Millions 4 contest at Circa Sports. So can't wait to get into those picks. I'm so ready for the NFL to be here.
Let's go.
I want to stop traveling. I want to just get into full DGen mode, just making like
give me my Sundays.
So I was at a wedding. I'll finish with this story. So I was at a wedding this weekend. Got a little sauced up, and I decided I was just going to start throwing max bets on Dolphins first half money line and Dolphins first half game because the wedding, the music went out for half an hour. I was like, hey, how do we spice this up? So I'm like getting like 5 people, and it's like we're all going to bet like $100 on Miami first half money line. Everyone's watching that. No one cared about the wedding anymore. That's how you know we're almost in football season. Full DGen max bets, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, that's hilarious and awesome because hey, if the DJ's out on a wedding, man, what are you supposed to do? Max bet.
Gamble. I figured it out. Just degenerate gamble. All right, that does it for the show. We'll talk to you guys soon. Good luck with all of your bets this week. See you later.